Alright, today I'm going to do a video on the two rocket stoves that are still in use in my outdoor kitchen today. Now, first I made like a little 4-inch burner, and then I made a little 6-inch burner rocket stove. And I was, and then I came across this diagram. So this was the third thing that I built that we're going to show. And this is the diagram I was basically working off of. And in this case, instead of just a burner, the smoke goes around another pan before it goes up and out a chimney. So it has the possibility of being used indoors. And here is the form for my combustion chamber, and you can see kind of off to the left and behind it a little bit, basically to the left of it, is the base of the stove that I was building up with cans, bottles, basically bottle cob work there. And so eventually I had a burner. Now I went to on this part here, what I did is I had the 6-inch stovepipe in there as a form, and then and I had this ring of plaster lath with a space and with a pretty good, like about at least a 2, maybe 3-inch space, probably closer to 2 inches in between the stovepipe form of the chimney from the combustion chamber, and I made a slip and put a whole bunch of straw in it, and I stuffed that straw and mud mixture in between the stovepipe and this plaster lath, and stuffed it in there really good. And the idea on that was when you on your first fire, the grass burns out and you end up with air pockets and you have an insulated chimney. Now on rocket stoves after this, I went more with the keep it simple stupid idea, but that was part of the experimentation on this one, was the slip with a whole bunch of straw in it that would get burned out on the first fire and make a bunch of air spaces that would act as insulation on the insulated chimney of the rocket stove. And then I fit it to a pan. So here's at the top of the chimney, I've got those little, I think they're pieces of ceramic tile that were busted up, set in there to keep and you also notice that around the rim there's a space so the smoke and heat could get all the way around the pan. And I'll show a couple more views. So there you can see I've got the opening for the smoke to continue on. And so at this point I had a contraption that looked like this. And boy, am I young in this picture. And notice I'm still building this part up with the bottle cob and going on to the next stage, which consisted of building the chamber for the smoke to go around this pot. Now, and I will show a couple more pictures of that. There's looking down in the chamber for the second pot, and these elevate the pot off the floor of the thing, and the smoke can go all around it before it exited here. And so now we have something that looks like this. So you can see that I had not done the chimney yet. And this is where it ended up. I did use it in this configuration for the first year or two. And it was a successful experiment. And it actually functioned quite well. There's some fried rice being cooked. And one thing about this, when I made coffee first thing in the morning, and that secondary pot was full of water, it would be perfect temperature wash water from be like warm, not hot, not too hot, but nice warm wash water after heating up the first kettle for a pot of coffee. And I used it in this configuration for about 2 years, and we'll get on to what it looks like now, because it is actually still in use, although at this point it's just a burner. At some point, after it'd been sitting out, and you notice there's nothing protecting it for about 6 years at this point. And this cement here on the wood feed, that was done at the beginning of the second year of using it, where I shoved all the wood in here. This was all banged up, and so that little part was cemented in after the first year of use. This little tunnel for the wood feed was the mud was replaced with cement. But after about 10 years, it was finally wore the hell out, and I shoved a stovepipe down there, and I re-poured the combustion chamber in cement, and I made a little countertop, I guess you would call here. And so this is its present configuration, and it's still in use today. But with everything I've learned over the years, I moved on to the next one that's actually part of my outdoor kitchen now. And here it is in use in its present configuration. And it's a really efficient, really good burner, and I mostly use it now if I'm doing mud work on the other stove, like the other day it was cracked all around. I redid the seal around the cooktop from it sitting through the winter, and I used this for a day there, and I also still like using this when I'm using a wok. But the stove, now we're going to move on to the stove I use every day when it's warm, because it's just too freaking hot to be adding heat to the inside of the house in the summertime for cooking. Here's where I started. And so this is like at a 90-degree angle to that other stove. And I've had this cooktop, I can't remember where it came from, laying in the yard, and it's cracked in 3 places, so it's not anything that you want it to do in an interior. You wouldn't want it in an interior situation, but I thought it would be perfect for this. And so what I ended up doing is I bottle cobbed around the combustion chamber for a 2-burner. So it's got 2 combustion chambers, one underneath here and one underneath here. And at this point it's mud, because most of it is still mud, but and yes, the cement is going to crumble, but it's going to last a hell of a lot longer under these conditions than the mud is. And even if you go all out and spend all the money on fire brick, eventually the fire brick's going to wear out, and you're going to have to replace that too. So I figured the cement combustion chamber is a happy medium between lasting longer than the mud, but not being too expensive. And so basically I bottle cobbed 3 sides of it, and I slip formed the front of it, a 2x4 at a time, on the front side. And so these are just 2 old pieces of stovepipe that I'm using for the form for the chimney of the combustion chamber. And at this point, and I just kept going up, leaning this up against a 2x4. So you see in the beginning, if whatever cement I had left over, I did throw in the bottle I did throw it, like over here you can see I had some leftover cement from this pour, and so I threw some, but mostly this is most of it is bottle cob except for the combustion chambers. And so that's basically, I slip formed it with this 2x4 in the front, the bottle cob around it, let that set up, and kept going. Alright, so here you can see I've used some pieces of 2x4 on this layer so you can get some, this will be the air inlet for the combustion chamber. Instead of making the wood feed and the combustion air all one hole with a shelf separating the two, in this case I made them separate, and I probably should have used an actual 2x4 instead of dimensioned lumber here, but it seems to get enough air. Here you can see where the 2x4 is set up, and those bricks are across there, and I'm getting ready to go on up with it. That I did actually put some wire in there to reinforce around those holes I made, and I'm slip forming on up with it. In between the air feed and the wood feed, I did stick a couple pieces of metal in there that I could lay a grate across, but still be able to get in there and clean out the ashes. So that is a grate in between the combustion chamber, in between the wood feed and the air feed. I used a couple bricks to form the wood feed, and so I'm going up with the bottle work, and there you can see there's a whole bunch of cement I had left over there on that layer of bottle cob. So you can see on three sides the bottle cob is the form, and then there's across the front. So at that point, so there I got the openings. Here I'm showing I've got the openings for there's the air feed and there's the wood feed. Now at this point I figured that was enough cement here in the front, but for the chimneys I still want it to go forward with cement. So here you see on that last little bit, I've got the 2x4 there, I've got this stovetop, this old stovetop leaning against it, and the front of the top of the combustion chamber, I went ahead, I didn't need to use cement there, I didn't figure, and there's the last of the slip forming on the front of it. And so now we're ended up with, and so I ended up with this, which at that point I finished pouring the combustion chamber. So here I have finished pouring the combustion chamber, and I've got an outline of where that stovetop goes. So at this point I mixed up a bunch of mud, I plopped it on there, and I walked away to let that mud firm up, because I'm putting a really heavy piece of cast iron on that thing, and I want it to go with a 2-inch space between this floor here and the cast iron is the measurement I was going for, and I happened to actually get there. And this is you're going for, your ideal mix here is 2 sand to 1 dirt, but a lot of times I'm trying to stretch the sand because I have to go get the sand, and the dirt's right here on site. But so a lot of this is not 2 to 1. A lot of these batches are 5 sand to 4 dirt, or 4 sand to 3 dirt, just doing small batches and not overworking myself. So I got that mud all mounded up around there, and at that point now I walk away and let that firm up before I come back. So there it is, set down on that mound of mud, and I had put a level on it and used a rubber mallet to tap it down to where I want it to. And here you can see there's a big crack there, there's a big crack here, and There's a crack back here too that's not really noticeable in this picture, but it was this old stovetop I had laying around, and I'm really, really glad I used it. I love this little stove. It's wonderful to use. There's another view from the front. Here you can see the piece of tin I cut. While it don't look this good now, I did actually get it looking pretty good, and it wouldn't take much to get it back to this point, because like it was rusty and nasty. And I started out just slathering it with a whole bunch of used motor oil until most of the rust and everything. And then at a certain point, I make up my own mixture of peanut oil and powdered graphite and rub it on there. And so that's my version of stove polish. Once it gets to a certain point, is graphite, powdered graphite, and peanut oil was the final finish on the thing. But in any case, it's an actual joy to use. There I'm cooking hamburger steak and mashed potatoes. I got both burners going, and makes for a really nice outdoor stove. It's a joy to cook on, and at this point, which was what you have been seeing on Twitter X, I have been posting. I'm working on building a wall around it for a windbreak, and this window here was going to be thrown in the trash by a neighbor and said, "Hey, I'll just make that as part of my wall. That'll be less bottle cob wall I have to make." Here's another view, and I've ended up. I didn't go any. I've only the chimney. I put the top of the chimney here because it's. The taller it is, the more it catches in the wind, which is what this is all about. The wind is pretty horrid. So here's the original stove, and in a 90-degree angle, here's this one. And this is for wind break, to provide some protection from the wind, is what I'm working on now and what you have seen, and that's what I've been posting pictures of lately. And so there it is, my two rocket cook stoves. Until it gets cold, so sometime this fall or this winter, until it cools off enough to cook with wood inside, this is where I cook all my food. And to end it off here, here's a section of what it looks like all finished, the bottle cob. And thank you all for watching. Like, share, subscribe, follow, and do all the things, and we'll catch you in some more game streams.